Welcome back to a very special episode of Recruiting Essentials because I am here, Shooter Hunt, with kind of the lead liaison, head dog of the Northeast, Pennsylvania and New York's own Dan Cevette, former third round pick, but also you made sure to let me know like you were PA State Player of the Year, and like you still must carry that around. Do you wear your old high school starter jacket still?
I don't have that still, but I do have the Gatorade plaque. Okay, so I
Okay.
still have that. It's somewhere in a bin, collecting dust. But yeah, I still have that.
Well, awesome stuff. And I really, we've been trying to get you on for like the last month and a half, 2 months probably, where I was like, hey, we got to sit down. I have some questions for you because I always appreciate what you've done for amateur baseball and especially the recruiting aspect of things. And I'm national, right? Like bouncing around all over the place. I love talking about a lot of New York, but especially PA and like the different pockets of talent. And when you go around the country a lot, there are certain schools, right? This program, I know this program's going to have guys eight
Right.
or nine deep in this lineup, the high school lineup, this place, kind of checking the boxes with where I'm going. Last year, I came back to the East Coast and I go into PA because there's prospects galore. And I noticed like all these kids are at different schools. It's not like, hey, we just all loaded up on this one school to get together and make a dream team. No, I'm playing for Methacton, wherever I'm Harrisburg, wherever it may be. I'm playing for my town team, Hershey, whatever school may be, and I love it. And it really has a sense of community to it, and like more of an old school vibe in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. Is that something that you've liked about the state?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a major homer to the state of Pennsylvania. Obviously,
Nothing
I
wrong
grew
with
up
that.
here. It's such a blue collar state. Okay,
Mhm.
so for what we do, I've always said if you treat the parents and the families and the players the right way, they're going to keep coming back because it's such a blue collar community. I joke a lot, but there's a lot of truth to it. Pennsylvania is the Florida of the North when it comes to baseball talent.
Okay.
And we have so many high-end prospects that come out of this area and they play all over. Like you said, they'll play at a class A school, they'll play at a 6A school, they'll play everywhere in between. We do have those private schools, the Melvin Preps, that do a phenomenal job and they have loaded rosters. But every school, you can go to small conferences across the entire state and there's going to
Yep.
be a guy that you're like, where did this player come from? And they're just different here. Nate Ocker, our Pennsylvania guy, always jokes that they're just built different in Pennsylvania because we're dealing with a lot of different things. We're cold weather. We don't play as much, so they're a little tougher. A lot of them are multi-sport athletes. They're coming right from basketball and they came from football. So there's some toughness in those players. And as once you get to that next level and you start honing in on one sport, some of these northern guys really, really explode. So Pennsylvania is just a great resource to the schools really when it comes to players.
Oh, and I'd say even more than any other state up in the Northeast too. Like the late bloomers. You talked about multi-sport guys. Like those dudes are playing basketball and football. Like almost every kid that I run in that's a big prospect, at the bare minimum, they're playing football. Like it's a birthright. You have to play football in the state of Pennsylvania, whether you're in the Pittsburgh area, Philly area, wherever it may be. But you've seen, I mean, I always think about University of Virginia. Kevin McMullen's done a great job grabbing, those Philly area guys, the PA kids who are kind of late bloomers that they develop. Vanderbilt's done the same. UNC, like all those schools in the ACC, SEC have really benefited from the state of Pennsylvania, and especially the late bloomers. Like these are athletes who just need reps, right? So you have to kind of identify the talent and know what it looks like at the time, right? Because the kid in PA in the same class as a guy in Florida, they're not going to look the same in video. They're not going to look the same when they hop on to the showcase circuit. They may not even know how to showcase, right? Go out and
Right.
get a ground ball, which is something that you've done so well. Like you guys go around to every corner of the state, whether it's New York or PA. Hey, we're going to bring this here because to me, what I've always seen from the outside is like you have a passion for helping these players and families unite with a school and kind of chase their dreams. How did you come upon that?
So yeah, we'll back it up a little bit. So I was finishing my pro career, and I remember I was in winter ball in Puerto
Hmm.
Rico, and I was like, I need to. It was like Thanksgiving, and I'm having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in San Juan. And I'm like, I need to figure something else out. Like maybe my chances of getting to that, the highest level are starting to close, that window's closing. So I wanted to stay in baseball. Like every pro guy wants to coach or stay somewhere in the game because that's what we know. That's what that's what we grew up on. So I was doing some research on the internet, and I saw Prep Baseball, and they were looking for a New York director. I had no idea what it was. Right, I never even heard of it. In fact, I barely knew any of these services.
Yeah.
I was trying to get locked in at that point to what was going on. So I did a few emails to Sean, and the first couple went unanswered, and I was persistent. And he can laugh about this now. Like, it took 3 or 4 emails, and I got back to the Northeast. I was hanging drywall at Cornell University, and I was just trying to plug along, make some money to support the family. And I ended up getting a response back from Prep Baseball, and I went out to Chicago, and really, that was kind of how it all started. And once I dove in, I really loved being the guy that could help a player that was like me from a very small town in Northeast Pennsylvania that, maybe didn't have the same resources as some of these other kids, but, that I could now be that, that opportunity for them, that resource. So a ton of passion behind what we do. And we've built this from the ground up. It's been building block after building block. It was very small to start with. Now we have, several full-time people, 7, 8 full-time people, a huge internship program, lots of part-time people. So we've really blown this up over the past 12 years, but it's always because it always comes back to the passion that I have for what we're trying to do and to help that Northeast player kind of have a voice.
It's so incredible, and I find it like organic. Like, there's nothing fake about you. Like, you bring energy to the field every day. Like, everything that you come out and do, like, there's passion, no malice behind anything. You're always looking, and not to blow up your head too much here, but like looking out for the player and the parent. And especially in those states, like beyond the the Westchester, the city area in New York, going upstate. I mean, shoot, you guys go up to Buffalo, where Rochester, wherever that may be. Then into PA, hey, we're not just doing the Catholic League, although we do it in Philadelphia, also going to go to this 1A town, this little area. We're going here under the board. There are times where I'm looking up, like, where is this spot at? But you found like, hey, these guys love baseball. There's really passionate baseball people in those places, and you want to tell their story. And I think you have that platform. You've not rested on it. Like, hey, we have this platform. I'm going to try to help these guys out. And I always look back to COVID. And I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but I think about, right, everybody's scrambling. Like, how do we adjust? How do we help these kids? How do we put this together? What can you do? And like, I think you were the first guy, like, how do we stream this? How do we get these kids in front of the college coaches? And it was no like small cost. Like, you picked up that cost and were like, I don't care what it costs. This is going to help the kid. This is what we're going to do. And like, you were instrumental in that pivot to another technological level. So like, thank you to you.
Well, it was, and there's a lot. I mean, it's certainly not just me. Obviously, Jared Carrier very well. He's been my right-hand man since, obviously almost 10 years ago. Obviously, there's a lot of people involved that make this machine kind of to operate. But I remember that specifically, like the PA State Games was just launching, and the New York State Games already had 3 or 4 or 5 years under its belt. Mm-hmm. These are mega events for us from many different resources. These things provided a lot of different things for players, for the business, for everything. And we were worried, how are we going to pull this off without college coaches potentially being allowed to be there? And it just, you have to problem solve in life, right? So like now I'm owning a business, and I have to figure out how can we make sure this doesn't drop, that the quality stays where it needs to be. Live streaming was, the aha moment. Like, let's just do that. Make college coaches have now they can, watch it. We can then tell the parents, hey, these coaches are going to lock in and watch. So that was,
they were.
and it was, dude, let me tell you, so stressful. And we didn't know what we were doing. Okay, let's be honest. We had no idea what we were doing. We were kind of shooting from the hip when it came to live streaming, and things have changed. But yeah, it was stressful, but I think it worked out pretty well. And the one thing we've always been, and I've always been, is super receptive to the criticism or comments or concerns that a coach might have or a parent might have. Like, if it's something that we're doing wrong, we're going to try to fix it. And, I have no ego at all, honestly. Like I know with like the social media and like, nothing's harder than trying to build a social media platform, by the way. I mean, it's really challenging and there's a lot of people with opinions, but yeah, it's very, it all comes from a good place. It's coming from a good place.
Yeah, it's so pure, just the ability to go out there like, hey, how do we get better, right? We've moved on to the technology. You talked about the streaming of things. How do we bring an event to this area instead of you coming to us? I always look at you guys. Jared takes the crew with Nate on the tour throughout late January into February. Those preseason events, which to me are always so important, especially for a cold weather kid to get on the radar of a college early enough. Build that resume. Hey, this is where I came out of the winter with. This is what I look like going into the spring. So now this college coach or Niagara knows that, hey, I need to get here because this kid has interest. We liked his video. We like the metrics. Tell me from your perspective, like, why should a kid come to a prep baseball event? What is it about prep baseball that this kid and family should invest in?
Well, I think number one, you have a lot of guys like me that care an awful lot about helping players get to the next level. And we're not hiding behind an email address or, we're going to respond, we're going to answer, we're going to be out there on the forefront. I love what we do because ever since I got involved, it's been 12 years now, we continue to evolve. Okay. And so, what's the famous saying, adapt or die, right? Like in the game of baseball. And
I sent my kid this morning.
It's the truth. Like and that's in life, right? Like you have to make adjustments. I love baseball because of that. It's a game of making adjustments. And same thing in the business world. And obviously what we do, you need to evolve with the times. Obviously technology is going at a crazy pace and we have been able to stay with it. And it's really been a testament. And that I really do respect what we do and I believe in it. Obviously it's, I'm biased in that, because it's what I do, but I just think that we're trying to give the players their own voice, a platform. The prep baseball profile, in my opinion, is gold. Okay, it's gold for a player. It can be a player that has, they're just starting out and they haven't been to an event and they're building that resume from the ground up. It could be the highest end player. It's going to come to one of our pro cases or come to the National Super 60. I mean, it has something for everyone, and that's really why I respect it so much and have such good feelings about it, because every player can benefit from it, from that low level potential junior college D3 player all the way up to the highest end guy that's going to get drafted. There's a benefit. And I think it starts with the guys like us that just care. We care about it. So that's why we're doing this. And I think it's unmatched around the country.
Yeah. And you touched on the network. And I always think it's always good to have somebody in your corner battling for you, and which is really cool. Once you're into the prep baseball, speaking, hey, yeah, I like this guy, because those phone calls are so important. I've talked with a bunch of college recruiters now, like a lot of big time schools, like, hey, it's really important that like to be seen, like, and have somebody, a resource. I can't be at every event, but I'm following on social media, but then the immediate phone call, right? If I'm tracking the PA State games, I think the last couple of years I've been at NPI, like I'm scrolling between innings, like,
yeah, that's
oh,
crazy.
there's another guy. And I'm sorry to you, Jared, Nate, like bugging you guys mid event where you're like, dude, I have to throw BP right now. I can't respond to you about this one kid from Hershey or wherever he's from. But having that network of guys that are going to go to bat for you is really important in the recruiting process. And you talk about all levels of players. And another thing I'm passionate about, especially in New York, or even more so in PA, the D2 programs, the D3 programs, like those guys are good, man. Like, those are some really good teams. I was with the guys at Keystone last week. Like, those are good programs where kids go off to play and then they produce pro talent. So it's not just, hey, the Big Ten. I'm sure a lot of people want to go to Penn State, right? There's a huge Penn State conglomerate there, Pitt, or wherever it may be. But like, hey, D2, junior college, whatever, all those other programs, you guys are finding guys like that, and you know that there is a fit for them. How do you work with that? And is that something else that you're like, hey, we can provide this resource for these schools too that have a smaller budget?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that's important for what we do, because I think once COVID happened, and you might know more about this talking with more schools, but I'm pretty confident to say that the budgets probably were cut then, and then a lot of people learned how to deal without the budgets, right? Like maybe your recruiting budget got cut in half, and now you figured it out. So now the administration says, "Hey, you know how to do this on half budget. Keep doing it." And so we are such a
Never
great
coming
resource.
back.
Yeah. we're such a great resource because of that. We have thousands upon thousands of videos from our events. Just speaking, in New York and PA, in the next 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to see 3,000 players, and we're going to have stat release pages that a college coach can go and just quickly look who stood out at these events.
Those are huge.
And I've had many contact me and say, Dan, you guys are the eye in the sky for us. While we're getting ready to play and while we are playing in February, you're the eye in the sky because we're still doing our job, right? Mm-hmm. We're still looking at players. Anyone that says, oh, they're not looking at you guys now, you're getting bad information. They are, if they are a good program, their assistants, they are paying attention. And so that's why these events are also like, you're putting yourself out there. We do social media better than anyone. You can put that in the bank. And it is 100% going to help the player get on lists for the summer. I mean, you come to our events, that's how you earn invitations to the state games, which you want to be at if you're a next level player, because that's where
I'm coming. I'm there this year.
Wait, I've heard that a couple of years. So
no, I told you, I gave you the blood oath. Like I'm coming.
It's going to be good. And again, we pick our future games teams from our state games. So like, there's going to be high end talent. And that's why 80 to 100 colleges make their trip, make their way to Pennsylvania or New York.
And it used to be, I'm thinking about the way, and this is insight into my all over brain, but like on Twitter wise, you guys are posting videos. Like if I like a player, like I'll just like a lot of schools will do the same. I think they've taken away, like, you can't see who liked a tweet, but like programs are doing that. And it's almost a self-reminder. Hey, I'm doing this on February 28th because when it hits June, I'm going to look back at that. And it's so important as a resource for these coaches. Like, hey, they're gathering intel, and all these coaches I've interviewed on this Recruiting Essentials segment, it's been like, we need to be acquiring names, whether it's 27s right now they can't talk to, or 28s for the next year. Hey, we need to be locked in on these guys. And we talk about those smaller schools that don't have those budgets, or the budgets got slashed. Hey, we need a one-stop shop, which a lot of times the PA State games is just, and the New York State games, which I've been to. Binghamton is unbelievable, but it's literally a buffet of players from all levels.
Yeah, between the two states, it's roughly 1,000 players that we have handpicked and selected from our preseason events. That we have criteria. A pitcher has to have at least shown us 80 miles an hour or better, so that way we know he's probably going to be 80 or better at the event, which I think is a college level arm. At some level, right? Like especially if they're younger. So we hold a criteria, and there's a standard there. So you're going to see really good players. Like I said, if you can pick 8 days, and that's the only recruiting that you do in the Northeast. It's the New York State games, it's the PA State games. It's 1,000 kids. It's a buffet, like you said. I mean, it's really, what are you looking for? You're going to find it. And
you do such a great job. And these are just insights. It's not just thrown against the wall. You strategically pick dates to help the coaches, right? And you moved the event. It was great. And what was that? Where did you start those PA State games? What was that place?
The PA State games were in Du Bois, PA.
Du Bois but it was a little further out. And from the I-95 corridor to catch those coaches coming from the Mid-Atlantic, just kind of moving it east a little bit was really helpful to them, because they're going to go from there to Jersey to New York, and they're going to kind of make their Northeast swing. And like we talked about, their budgets are not unlimited.
Right.
So, college programs do not have unlimited budgets.
Not baseball.
Maybe a few schools, but like they're not taking personal jets and flying from this place to that place. Hey, they need to see guys in certain periods, certain times. And that's something we talk internally. Like, how do we best help out the prospective student athlete and the family, while also uniting them with the coach? And you guys do an awesome job of that. Like it really is amazing what goes into that thoughtful decision. But like, you guys have found a great date. It's during the week. Coaches are going to roll up, not to mention you have great players too.
Yeah. I mean, it's a challenge, and we have big time discussions, long discussions. You can talk to Jared about that, and Nate. Like, we talk hours and hours about, everything that goes into place for these state games is thought about, and it's to benefit the player, and it's to benefit the coaches. Like the PA State games moved east because there's a huge event in New Jersey
Mhm.
that is only an hour away now from where the PA State games is. So they can actually come back and forth. And they did that last year. And it's just, hey, we want to have as many schools there. We want to make sure that we're being open-minded and flexible as well. So again, it goes back to what I said. We are willing, if someone gives us a thought and we think it's a good thought, we are going to change. We're not stuck in our ways. We're willing to adapt. Absolutely. So the state games, in my opinion, college coaches, I always write you, Shooter. I'm like, can you send a message out? These guys got to be there. And, last year, over 120 schools at the PA State games. It was insane.
It really is, and they do a great job. Obviously, there's a ton of schools on the East Coast. They obviously know that there's tons of talent in PA, New York. I'm thinking back for the one New York State games I came to. Not only did you host like an incredible event, you guys ran it flawlessly. It was quick. I was surprised at just how efficient it was. Then you're hosting like a mixer for all the coaches afterwards. You're never sparing an expense. It's just like, what can I do to help these coaches? What can I do to help these guys? Obviously, Binghamton's an incredible facility all over New York. What you guys have done there. I'm doing this because you'll never talk about yourself. But I'm here to like say just how much you've done for New York and PA and like keeping me in tune. Like, hey, these are really good players, but you also know what a good player looks like in New York and PA. Jared, Nate, they do a great job. Joe, knowing, hey, these guys look different at this time, right? We were just talking before we came on the show. A sophomore in high school in, just outside of Pittsburgh. Hey, he may be coming off football and basketball season. Like you see him in this showcase in late February, and it's like, this guy, you really think he's good?
Right.
And because you're acute, they're very much aware of like, hey, I know where this guy will be in 3 months. And shout out to you for knowing that. You make me look good.
Well, it's still some of that. It's still some of the old school like scouting that I love, like the eye test, and I think being from the state of Pennsylvania, growing up, especially in northern Pennsylvania. So I grew up right on the border of New York, and it was oftentimes the players like me would be overlooked because we came from small areas, small towns. So being able to see that player, I was 6'4" and 165 pounds, and luckily my parents took me places to where then I was getting noticed. But you see the player that doesn't play a lot, that plays multiple sports. It's hard for them to carry weight, right? Like they're going from football to basketball to baseball, and they've lost 10 pounds. So it takes them till the summer to get it back. And like you said, you're seeing swings, and you're like, you really think that kid's going to be really good? And we're like, yeah, he's going to be good. Like we've seen him before. We know he's going to be good. And again, it's a little bit of a guessing game. We have to trust our instincts, and that's why I like kind of the old school scouting. Like it's trusting the eyes a little bit. Like
it's maybe unifying it.
Yeah, like that metric maybe doesn't line up with some other guys, but like you said, it's really challenging for you around the country because you got to look at a Pennsylvania kid, and you have to compare him to a Texas kid or a Florida kid that plays 11, 12 months out of the year, and you're getting a Pennsylvania kid that has 6 months, maybe 6 months of baseball under his belt every year. And you have to figure out, where do these guys fit? And I think it kind of like works itself out over the years, I think.
But
it's a tough job. I don't know how you do it because it's challenging.
Well, you get guys like JJ Weatherall, I think is just recently like a guy, hey, we had seen him in high school. It's just like he needed some seasoning, goes off to West Virginia. He's going to be a big league star. Can't wait to see what he does there. But it's just, and even to driving around PA, and I always think about, I go on my spring trip, right? And I go to these incredible high school fields. Their programs like unreal. Like there'll be times where I'm at a field like, oh, this field's not great. And I then go to Bucks County, wherever I'm at, and I'm like, if those kids ever came on this field right now for like pregame in and out, like the things that they were doing on that pristine, like perfectly cut grass down south of California or Texas, wherever it may be, like that wouldn't fly here. You need to wear something off the chest and throw it across the diamond here. That's how we roll in Pennsylvania. But like those are the things you have to take into consideration, right? Like, hey, this kid may not have the ability to like look super flashy at shortstop right now because he has just adapted, right? Like, I need to make a play. I
Yeah.
can't look it just need to get the out, or else I just rolled out an eighth period an hour ago. We did not go through a full pregame BP. There was no bullpen mound, whatever it may be. Not that it's, you know, I won't say like these guys are tougher, because there's tough kids all over the country. That
Oh,
doesn't really matter there, but there is definitely a badge of pride that you'd see in a kid. Thinking about Chase Harlan last year, like, and they had a really nice field, but it was thick grass, like kind of powdery sand. Like, how are you going to defend in pregame? You got 30 scouts watching them, and I'm thinking to myself, like, yo, this ball may go in any direction that goes to.
that's the thing. Like the fields, a lot of the fields in Pennsylvania, they're, like again, because they're just coming out of winter, and we start in March, so it's still very cold, and you still get snow. Then you'll get rain. The fields are not great. The surfaces are not good. So the ball might go, like you said, it's going to play plinko on the way to third base, and you got to figure out what you're going to do. So it's so much different and then you go see this kid 2 years later in college, and you're like, wow, this guy's a player. And we're like, yeah, we know that, but he was wearing hockey gear at third base because he was trying not to get killed. So I love it. I think Pennsylvania does bring that raw, tough player out. And I think coaches understand that they know this kid isn't where he's going to be. And I think that's probably the easiest way to explain it. Whatever you see, you're going to get more when you get them.
For sure. And don't get me wrong, the passion's there all throughout the country. But you talk about that progression and building that resume again within the profile. And I've talked to, again, a lot of these recruiting coordinators who are like, yeah, we're following that. And I think it's really might even be more important up by you, where, hey, the progression from when this kid was 13, 14 to where he was at 16 to where he is, going into his draft year. Seeing that ability, even, hey, coach can't talk to you, but hey, they're eyeing that for sure. And they're seeing, hey, I know what a PA guy looks like. This is where he's at right now. Okay, that swing works. Defensively, it's not there yet, but also I know what he's playing on. We can do some drills with that. That is stuff that they are following very closely. Not late in the game. They need to start early because they need to beat guys out, because there's a lot of hidden gems there.
I think that's too why, like when you look at arms, I think you'll see an arm that commits to like a Vanderbilt or Wake Forest. And some people say, man, there's like 15 of those in Florida right now. Like, I don't understand it. And it's the same thing with the draft. Like, the Northern guys are just more crude. They're just more raw of a player, and they don't have as many reps, and their arms are, hopefully not beat up. They haven't thrown 200 innings a year. And, they look at that and they say, once we get this player that we really like, but once we get this player in our system, they are going to take off. And you see that a lot with Northern players. And I'm sure it happens everywhere, but like, my son's not playing 85 games a year, like right now, so it's like, some of these kids are playing 200 games a year, they're playing baseball year round, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think in high school, if you have the ability to play multiple sports and you can help your program, man, you're going to remember that when you're my age. When you're 41 years old, you're going to sit back. And I remember my high school basketball run we went on my senior year, and that's something I can talk to, other people about and reminisce. And it's something you won't forget.
Were you setting picks? What were you doing back then?
Yeah, we were 27-1. We lost in the third round of states in Pennsylvania, Class A.
Okay.
To York Country Day, which had 2 Division I basketball players there. It was a private school, and 3 overtimes. So, and we only had 6 guys on our team. Dan
Cevette, former third rounder, baseball extraordinaire, just nonstop, like an iron mind of what happened during his basketball season.
I love it. Senior year. Hey, my parents for Christmas got me a cassette tape of the game, so I listened to it. Yeah, it was crazy. I didn't know they made cassette players anymore, but they got one and a cassette tape from the company that did it back then, because it was all the games were on radio. And so I got to listen to it over Christmas of the last game of my high school career in basketball. And I loved basketball. I loved it. So I'm a huge basketball guy. I love football. And then obviously baseball is the real passion. But God, yeah,
you're talking sports. Straight Hoosiers. I feel like Hickory High was there. Dan Cevette leading the way. Jimmy Chitwood.
I had to play against Jerry McNamara. You want to talk about we had to play them in my junior year. That's a different type of player. So yeah, we had some fun.
Oh my God. He was Steph Curry before Steph Curry. Dan, I want to thank you for coming on here to talk about those guys in the Northeast. Really excited. I know I am. I'm going to be making my way to my first ever PA State games. I'm making it public.
I
I'm
can't
making it
wait.
happen. You're sending the jet down for me, right? The Herb
Yep.
Street jet.
We're gassing it up right now. It's going to take a while, but yeah, we got it.
Well, awesome stuff. I can't wait to talk with you after the preseason. All those dudes rolling through New York and Pennsylvania. Make sure you're taking care of Jared, Nate, Joe, and all the rest of your team. Don't burn them out too much. To all those players, make sure you're putting on a show. Can't wait to see what kind of stuff they're rolling out through social. Until next time, this has been a Recruiting Essentials with the great Dan Cevette. We'll see you at the ballpark.